Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Thank you as always for taking time out of your day to watch the videos. I really appreciate it. We have more PlayStation news, rumors, and leaks to go over and discuss today. So before we get into these topics, do me a big favor. If you do end up enjoying this video or finding it informative, make sure you leave it a like. Really helps the videos a lot. And if you are new here to the channel, please consider hitting that subscribe button as well. Now, the first topic we're going over is a pretty significant one, as it seems we have our first potential leak of a PlayStation 5 Pro. And by leak, I don't mean like an insider telling us about this. I mean an actual company that may be in the know about Sony's plans coming out here and making it known that, yeah, they're going to be putting out a Pro. Now, it's not just the PS5 Pro that is potentially leaking, but also the mid-gen Xbox Series refresh as well. So let's go over the information here. This is reading from WCCF Tech, where they say often it still feels like the current PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series generation is barely getting off the ground, but the fact is the systems are already closing in on 2 years old. So, could Sony and Microsoft already be thinking about their next hardware? The PS4 Pro and Xbox One X launched in 2016 and 2017 respectively, only 3 to 4 years after the launch of the base consoles. So could mid-gen upgrades be on the way, even though the base PS5 and Xbox Series X remain difficult to find on shelves? Well, apparently TV manufacturer TCL Technology thinks so. According to Polish tech site PPE, during a showcase of their new TVs, TCL presented a slide showing a timeline of recent console generations. Said timeline included a Gen 9.5, which they said will bring a PS5 Pro and new Xbox Series X and S sometime in 2023 or 2024. They also mentioned the new AMD Radeon RX 7700 XT, perhaps as a point of comparison in terms of what we can expect power-wise from the new mid-gen consoles. It seems TCL expect these updated machines to deliver 8K, 60 frames per second, 120 FPS gameplay, likely up-resed from 4K, and I'll obviously have these images up if I haven't already put them up for you to see. The article continues by saying, now the big question, how much does TCL actually know about Sony and Microsoft's possible mid-gen upgrade plans? As the second largest TV manufacturer in the world, they'd certainly be in a position to get some privileged details on the subject. It would also be very odd for them to mention the PS5 Pro and the Xbox Series X mid-gen refresh entirely out of thin air. Perhaps some of what TCL mentions, the specific time frame, the 7700 XT comparison, is speculation, but they must have some basis for putting this out there. So yeah, that's why this is pretty important to cover, because it's not like this is just some random individual on the internet claiming there's going to be a PS5 Pro. This is TCL, and I have to agree with what the article is stating here. It would be very strange for them to confidently talk about a Gen 9.5, a PS5 Pro in this way if they weren't relatively sure, based off of their own information, being as big of a TV manufacturer as they are, that this was going to happen. Now, what's interesting is looking at the general reaction to this information, a lot of people are seemingly not happy about the notion of a PlayStation 5 Pro, and I do understand why people feel this way, because when you look at the PS5, it really still is very hard to come across, and it's going to remain that way for a little while, although it's going to get better over the next year. But I think that, combined with the fact that the PS5 is in just simply a different position than the PS4 was, the PS4 was still pretty lacking by the time it launched in 2013, so a Pro model made more sense, especially with 4K resolution, right? It's a pretty big upgrade from going from 1080p 30 FPS to 4K 30 FPS, or even upscaled 4K 30 FPS, to whereas where we are with the PS5, I mean, the idea of like 8K 60 FPS, more 120 FPS games, that's all great, but it just doesn't seem nearly as necessary. But that's where I think people need to kind of just, I think, calm down a little bit, because you have to remember that when Sony reveals a PS5 Pro, right, which will likely be in 2024, I don't think it's going to come in 2023. It would be pretty surprising if it did. That's very soon. it's not like you're going to be forced to buy it, right? I mean, if anything, when Sony feels confident enough to reveal and launch a PS5 Pro, that might be a really good sign, because it will likely mean that the shortage is not nearly as bad as it once was. We also have to understand that it's just a mid-gen refresh, and it's really just for those who feel like they want the extra bells and whistles, whatever those may be. And I know that there are going to be some PS5 owners who are going to act as if they're getting gypped or something like that. Like, well, what was the point of even upgrading to a PS5 if they're going to do a PS5 Pro? Again, you need to keep in mind that it's not like Sony's launching a PS5 Pro a year and a half after the PS5. If it does come out, the earliest will be 3 years after the PS5 launched. I mean, looking at what they did with the PS4 Pro, you probably should have been prepared for that to be a reality, you know what I mean? And I just think that this is where you kind of see this initial reaction where people are kind of being extremely negative about it and making it sound like it's the worst thing ever, when in reality, I fully expected a mid-gen refresh. I think that what we saw with the PS4 Pro as well as the Xbox One X, and considering that it went pretty well, no one really was that against it at the time, and you know, people were buying them. It didn't hurt Sony or Microsoft. To me, it just seemed completely obvious that yeah, they're gonna do this again. Why wouldn't they? Now, whether or not you as the consumer feel as though it's necessary, again, you don't have to buy it. If you think that the PS5 is more than enough, and you think that that's something that can last the entire generation, you know, there's just really no need for a Pro, then just buy a PS5. You know what I mean? I don't think that it's necessarily a problem by offering a Pro. I think that the only time it would be a problem is if it started to kind of mess around with development. Now, I think it's more concerning on Microsoft's side, because they already have like 2 SKUs, you know what I mean? They have the Series S and the Series X, and if they do a refresh, they're presumably going to do it for both. That's going to be a lot of different SKUs for developers to have to kind of work with, but yeah, that's the leak, so I wanted to let you guys know about it. Be sure to let me know your thoughts about that down below. Let me know if you'd be interested in a PS5 Pro. We're moving on to the next topic, which is also a pretty good one here. We have a rumor on a new Infamous game as well as a new Sly Cooper game. This is reading from comicbook.com. They say it sounds like PlayStation might truly be preparing to bring back its dormant open world action series Infamous. For the better part of the past year, we've continued to hear various rumors and reports suggesting that a 4th mainline Infamous game would be coming to the PS5 at some point, and while we have to keep waiting to see if that's actually true, one insider suggested that we could hear more before 2022 comes to a close. According to a reputable video game industry insider that goes by the name Account NGT, PlayStation should be gearing up to announce a new Infamous title at some point this year. Further details on when such an announcement could come, when they could come about, weren't given, but it was said that PlayStation is currently planning to hold a presentation of some sort in September. As such, this seems like the month in which we should keep an eye out for any potential announcements involving Infamous. And so if we go over to Account NGT's Twitter, they responded to Hunter, who said that a Sly Cooper 5 will be announced later in 2022, claims Insider, and Account NGT says likely September, as I was saying, since early March. By the way, the same source told me a few weeks ago that no big showcase was planned until September, which coincides with the time of the announcement in September. And then they also say the source also thinks that Infamous will be announced this year. It's also worth noting that I believe Special Nick was recently talking about Sly Cooper 5, and that is who Hunter is referencing. So at this point, it really does seem like, considering we continue to hear about it, that a Sly Cooper revival, or you know, a new game as well as a new Infamous game, these are titles that Sony is working on, and it makes sense. The reason why I believe these so easily is because why wouldn't Sony make new entries in these series? I mean, they would do really well. People want this, especially a game like Infamous. No offense to Sly Cooper, but I just feel like, considering how popular, you know, superheroes are now, having a new Infamous game just makes the most amount of sense. Now, as for what Account NGT is saying about no showcase in June, like it's not happening until September, I don't know how I feel about this because Account NGT, he is a reliable source and he has been correct about things in the past, but this conflicts very much with what I've been told, but also with everything that's been lining up when it comes to all these different PlayStation games. The reality of the situation right now, as far as I can tell, is that PlayStation fans are absolutely expecting Sony to do something over the course of the next month and a half, and it would be very surprising, I think, to a lot of people if they didn't do anything. I'm not necessarily saying it absolutely has to be a massive showcase per se, like an hour and a half long showcase. To me, a showcase seems the most likely. That's what I was told. But if we end up getting something like a, God of War dedicated state of play or something like that, yeah, that would be awesome as well. But still a little bit surprising because we're hearing all this stuff about all these games regarding PlayStation. But nonetheless, this is what's being said. Either way, whenever Sony does do their show this year, whenever that may be, apparently we can expect a new Sly Cooper and potentially a new Infamous announcement, which would be awesome. So let me know your thoughts about that. The final topic I have for you talks about Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, because we have confirmation of something that many of us were kind of wondering about. It turns out that Sony actually still has the marketing rights to Call of Duty, which is certainly ironic considering that Microsoft announced they are acquiring Activision Blizzard. But we do have to understand a couple things. First and foremost, that any contracts that were previously there obviously have to be honored. So we don't know how long Sony has the marketing rights for. It could be up until 2024. So like when Treyarch releases their next game, which apparently is going to happen in 2024, they're taking a year off in 2023, shockingly. Sony may still actually have the marketing rights at that point. But, once that contract is up, that's it. Sony's not going to be marketing Call of Duty anymore. But it's, again, just a little bit ironic. And the reason why we discovered this is because they revealed the artwork of the game yesterday, as well as the release date, which I believe is October 28th. But a couple of other things leaked out. The different editions of the game leaked out. And one of the things that it talks about is early access to the open beta first on PS4 and PS5. Now, I just want to throw this in here. Again, I do not mean to sound like a broken record, but it just has to be mentioned. They say that the full reveal of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 is happening very soon. Obviously, it's going to happen in the coming weeks because we're entering June. Again, knowing that Sony has the marketing rights, this is the game that you would expect to see at a PlayStation event or showcase. I just want to say that because it just kind of adds to that massive pile at this point that seems to indicate Sony's doing something in June. This is why I can't believe the rumor that they're waiting till September. I mean, there's always the possibility that Modern Warfare 2 could do whatever they want on their own time and not be associated with Sony, but just like we covered yesterday, what Jeff Keighley's saying, more and more third-party publishers want to be part of these first-party events. And considering Sony has the marketing rights to this, ironically enough, Modern Warfare cannot be shown off at the Xbox event. Maybe it'll be at Summer Game Fest. We'll have to see. But there you go, guys. That's all the information I have for you today. I hope you did enjoy it. I hope you did find it informative. Again, if you did, leave it a like. Subscribe if you're new. Hit the bell notification icon. And feel free to share the video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.